Today, we're diving into something huge, something that cuts right to the core of who we are. We're talking about the cost of truth. So let's just jump right in with a question for you. And I mean, really think about it. What is your integrity actually worth? What price would you be willing to pay to hang on to it? Your job? Your reputation? How about your life? History, and even the stories we tell each other, they're just packed with these moments, right? These pressure points where people are forced to make that exact choice. So we're going to look at three incredible stories where telling the truth, or maybe more importantly, refusing to tell a lie, came with the highest price tag imaginable. Okay, first up, let's go back in time, way back, to Salem, Massachusetts, 1692. I want you to just picture it, a whole town completely gripped by paranoia and hysteria. Logic is just out the window. Fear is in charge. And in this world, all it takes is for someone to point a finger at you. No evidence needed, just an accusation. And right in the middle of all this madness, we find this character, John Proctor. And the choice he's given? Well, it seems simple, but it's anything but. He's told, look, just tell a lie. Sign this piece of paper saying you're a witch, and you get to live. The other option? Tell the truth, say you're innocent, and you will hang. So what does he do? He refuses to sign. He refuses to tell that lie, and he has this famous, incredible line where he just screams, "Because it is my name." And you have to understand, that name, it means everything to him. It's not just a word, it's his honor, his soul, his entire reputation. For him, a life that's built on a public lie, well, that's not a life worth living at all. Now, you might be thinking, okay, that's just a play. But this whole dilemma, it wasn't just some historical drama. The guy who wrote it, Arthur Miller, he actually wrote The Crucible because he saw the exact same thing happening all around him, a modern-day witch hunt. Okay, so fast forward a couple hundred years. We're in Hollywood, the 1950s, and the mood, it is thick with paranoia. The big bad enemy this time is communism, and there's this frantic hunt to find anyone who might have ties to it. It's Salem all over again, where just being accused is enough to ruin you. So what was the demand? It was simple, and honestly, it's chillingly familiar. You get called up in front of this government committee, and they tell you to name names. The ethics of it are just brutal. Rat on your friends, your coworkers, your peers. Throw them under the bus, publicly, just to save your own skin. And if you refused, what was the cost? Well, it wasn't a hangman's noose, but in a way, it was a kind of death, a professional death. You'd be put on the Hollywood Blacklist, and poof, your career was just gone. Just like John Proctor, these writers and artists were being asked, what is your name? What is your integrity worth to you? Is it worth your entire livelihood? And you know what? A lot of them refused to name names, and they paid that price. But hold on, there's another way to look at all this. What if integrity isn't about shouting your truth from the rooftops? What if it's actually about keeping your mouth shut? And that brings us to our third story. And honestly, this one is just so incredibly powerful. So now we're in the middle of World War II, the Pacific Theater. And the US military has a secret weapon that is an absolute game changer, the Navajo Code Talkers. They use their native language, a language, by the way, that the US government had once tried to stamp out, to create a code that the enemy never, ever broke. This was literally a decisive tool in winning the war. But their mission, it came with this incredibly profound vow. First, they had to memorize this complex code. Second, they had to transmit these life-or-death messages flawlessly while under enemy fire. And then, and this is the part that just gets me, they had to go home and never, ever speak of it. Not to their wives, their children, not to a soul. For decades after the war, they kept that sacred promise. Their integrity was defined by what they didn't say. And this just perfectly sets up the core tension we're talking about today. See, on one hand, you've got John Proctor. For him, integrity means protecting his own good name from being attached to a lie. But, on the other hand, you have the Code Talkers. Their integrity was about sacrificing their own individual story to protect a collective secret, to make sure their comrades came home alive. Okay, so let's pull all these threads together. We've got three different scenarios, three really high-stakes demands, and three very different but very profound costs. When you lay it all out like this, the pattern is just so clear. You've got John Proctor. They demand he sign a false confession. He refuses to lie, and the cost is his life. Then you have the Hollywood writers. They're told to name names. They refuse to betray their community, and the cost is their entire careers. And finally, the Navajo code talkers. Their duty was to keep a secret. They chose to refuse to speak, and the cost was a lifetime of silence, carrying that weight for the good of everyone else. So what's the big takeaway here? I think it's that maybe integrity isn't just one simple thing. It's not always about being the loudest voice in the room. It's more like a spectrum of loyalties, right? Sometimes integrity is that fierce loyalty to yourself, to your own name. But other times it's about loyalty to your community. And, as we've seen, sometimes it's about a deep, silent loyalty to a mission that's so much bigger than you are.
And that really leaves us with one last challenging question, one for you to think about. When the stakes are that high, when the price is literally everything you have, what truth do you choose to serve? And just as importantly, what kind of silence do you choose to keep?